Our news is brought to you by Alive.
Coming up tonight in Our News, the former Beaches and Parks Authority chairman speaks out. Just how much is government hoping to get for the Grand Lucayan? Inside the opening of the legal year, and the former prime minister accuses the government of guessing with the fourth wave. Welcome to Our News and thank you for joining us. I'm Kyle Joaquin. Topping news tonight, weeks after a damning audit of the Public Parks and Beaches Authority was released, detailing overspending and irregularities with the issuance of contracts, the former chairman is maintaining he did nothing wrong. Shannon Cartwright says he will give a full account in due time.
Again, you stand on the premise that you did nothing wrong.
I stand on that premise. I would have made a statement in the House of Assembly a couple of weeks ago, and that's all I wish to say on the matter.
It's the first time he has spoken publicly on the findings of an audit into the Public Parks and Beaches Authority, which revealed excess spending on government contracts and irregularities. The document detailed how some contract signings were not witnessed, key files were missing, and some contracts went to the same person, but under different company names. All contracts were subsequently cancelled and an investigation ordered. When we spoke with him as he left Parliament Wednesday morning, Cartwright didn't want to touch on the possible findings of that investigation.
An investigation is underway. Any idea what they'll perhaps find?
No comment.
None at all?
None.
But you're confident that you did nothing wrong?
Very, very much so.
Last month, Prime Minister Philip Davis said it was in fact Cartwright's parliamentary colleague and former leader, Dr. Hubert Minnis, who sounded the alarm and asked that the board's affairs be investigated.
No comment at all.
Have you spoken to Dr. Minnis since?
In reference to
that, the allegation?
No, not at all.
Minnis has since denied such a claim. But it's no secret there is some contention between Minnis and a few of his parliamentary colleagues. In Parliament today, he was noticeably distant from the rest of the team. Still, Cartwright says there is no bad blood between he and Dr. Minnis.
We have a very good relationship, as we always have.
Meanwhile, an investigation is underway.
From your findings, from what you've realized so far, someone will have to give an account or have to answer.
Of course.
Public Parks and Beaches Authority Chairman Michael Bonnaby would not go into detail about who was involved in the investigation, but said the board will meet this month to discuss the findings.
It is a multi-agency investigation that includes a lot of different agencies within the government. And so, again, I don't want to get out in front of the investigation. I don't want to tip our hat. And so we are being very meticulous in what we're doing.
Is police involved in this investigation?
Kyle, I'm not at liberty to say that as it stands now, but the public will be made known as to what we are doing in the relevant period of time.
Well, government is aiming to sell the Grand Lucayan Resort on Grand Bahama for $150 million, according to Tourism and Investments Minister Chester Cooper. 6 companies have expressed an interest in the property. Cooper said he expects to have a shortlist over the next 6 weeks.
There has to be a very clear vision. There has to be significant resources financially, and they must demonstrate this in clear terms, and they must share the vision for Grand Bahama and the outlook for tourism in Grand Bahama and the Bahamas. So once we look through all of that criteria, we will look at their track record in the business, we'll look at their experience, and on that basis, we will make the determination. So in short, money alone isn't going to do it.
Cooper said one of the interested companies is Bahamian-owned. The previous government purchased the resort in 2018 for $65 million. It cost government over $1.2 million a month to operate the property. The Davis administration canceled the agreement the Minnis administration reached with Royal Caribbean and ITM Group, calling it a bad deal. Cooper said the selection process is more than just about money.
We're in for $150 million. That's the number. We believe that this is an attractive proposition. 2,500 acres of prime beachfront property, a golf course, a marina site. This is a magnificent site. It has the opportunity really to drive the economy of Grand Bahama and can be a substantial plank in the offerings of one of the major brands.
The Bahamas has been removed from the European Union's anti-money laundering blacklist, according to Attorney General Ryan Pinder. He made the announcement during the opening of the legal year today.
And on Friday, January 7th of 2022, just last week, the European Commission adopted a new regulation to update the EU AML blacklist, which including the delisting of the Bahamas. It has now been shared with the European Parliament and Council for formal consultation. After such consultation, the regulation will be published in the official journal of the European Union and entered into force 20 days thereafter.
In October 2020, the European Union officially added the Bahamas to its list of countries categorized as having strategic deficiencies in their anti-money laundering and counterterrorism financing framework. The Bahamas missed a critical component of being delisted after failing to be removed from the Financial Action Task Force Grey List, which required an on-site visit. Shortly after being appointed Attorney General, Pinder told reporters a good case was submitted for the delisting.
The Bahamas can now boast of having largely compliant and compliant ratings in 38 of the 40 FATF recommendations, one of the highest compliance levels in the region. This is something we should be extremely proud of.
Well, in his final address before his retirement, Chief Justice Sir Brian Murray called on the government to give members of the judiciary the tools needed to get the job done. He expressed disappointment that the court services bill didn't make it past Parliament. Berthany McDermott has more.
Give us the tools, and we will get the work done. Close quote. This is my message to the executive branch of government.
Chief Justice Sir Brian Murray sending this stern message to the executive branch at the start of the legal year. During the ceremony, which was held virtually in response to the surge in COVID-19 cases, Murray lamented the way the courts are handled. He said if the court system is to be truly independent, it cannot be treated as another government department or agency.
It bears reminding the public that it is an independent judiciary which is the ultimate custodian of your rights and liberties. If we are to fulfill our vital constitutional role, the judiciary must be given adequate financial resources, competent staff, proper equipment and supplies, and suitable physical premises to operate the courts.
He renewed calls for judicial independence and strongly urged the Davis administration to reintroduce and pass the Court Services Bill, which, if passed, would give the courts financial autonomy. He added the judiciary needs more control of its matters to implement the necessary reforms. For this reason, he said he's disappointed that the bill wasn't passed. It was tabled in the House of Assembly under the Menace administration before the dissolution of Parliament last year.
We in the judiciary stand ready to do our part in improving efficiencies and productivity if we are provided with the means to do so.
The Chief Justice also addressed efforts to reduce the backlog in criminal cases in the Supreme Court. He noted that additional Supreme Court justices have been brought on. However, Sir Brian said some criminal lawyers are also contributing to the delay in cases due to their commitments. He made it clear the court is not prepared to surrender its calendar for this reason.
I am aware that constitutional issues are engaged in this discussion, but the court is not impotent in the face of counsel who claim to have no availability for 2 or 3 years. I intend to discuss this matter with members of Bar Council, the Director of Public Prosecutions, and members of the Criminal Bar in an attempt to find a sensible and balanced approach to this problem. But the current position is no longer sustainable.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Berthany McDermott.
Former Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis says it appears the government is playing the guessing game during the fourth wave of COVID-19 cases. The country confirmed another 521 cases on the majority rule holiday and 241 new cases on Tuesday. Minnis says he expected to hear much more during the Prime Minister's address on Sunday, particularly when it came to restrictions and controlling the spread of the virus.
There are no strategy and there are no plans. But once you analyze and monitor and look at your contact tracing, the areas that are having the great impact, that's how you determine the way forward. Without that, you are guessing. You are guessing. And that don't work. That don't work in war. In war, you strategize.
Prime Minister Philip Davis has repeatedly said government has moved away from curfews and lockdowns. But Health Minister Dr. Michael Darville said protocols are under review. Minnis says there should be some data that would direct government on the areas that need tighter restrictions. He told reporters it is like the country going to war without the proper tools.
Without analyzing, without knowing your enemies, without knowing how your enemies attack, when they attack, who they attack, then you decide how to deal with it. Outside of that, I can't say, gentlemen, Bahamians, we are at war. You are on your own, but I'm going to provide you with a mask, and I'm going to do a test. There's no strategy, there's no plan, you're on your own. That's like sending us to war with a BB gun to fight America or whoever else with a BB gun.
Breezy conditions in the capital. Meteorologist Greg Thompson has our first look at weather.
Thanks, Kyle, and welcome everybody for your first look at weather. Dreary and gray evening outside our studios right now under partly to mostly cloudy skies. Temperatures at 70 degrees with some light showers out there. The winds are really blowing out there east at 12 miles per hour, and they are gusting higher. And look at that feels like temperature in the mid-60s, so very cool conditions on the outside. Satellite view, frontal boundary that was stationary across the central Bahamas. A lot of showers and thunderstorms associated with that. That boundary is actually pulling out towards the east and into the Atlantic. A lot of the activity along that frontal boundary as well. But we still have some residual showers across the area, and we will continue to see one or two of those showers later on tonight through tomorrow. That's your first look at weather. Your extended forecast is still to come.
Still to come, a man shot to death in front of his home, and why the acting CMO believes the Bahamas is cresting the fourth wave. Stay tuned.
Welcome to our news, and thanks for joining us. Topping news tonight.
COVID-19 remains a serious threat.
Coronavirus COVID-19 has disrupted our economy, tourism industry, educational system, and put our healthcare facilities and professionals on high alert. Are you prepared? Do you have all the facts? Stay tuned to this network for the very latest news and information on this global pandemic.
A man was shot and killed last night during an incident off Tonic-Williams-Darling Highway. According to the police report, the victim was standing in front of his home on Knowles Drive around 9 p.m. when two gunmen pulled up in a small vehicle, exited the car, and shot him several times. The suspects then jumped back into the vehicle and fled the scene. When responding officers arrived, they found the man lying on the ground, unresponsive. Devastated family members screamed, "I love you," as his body was removed from the scene. Police say the man had multiple gunshot wounds. The incident is now under investigation. Well, better days could soon be ahead for the Bahamas. Acting Chief Medical Officer Dr. Philip Swan says he believes the country will be at the peak of the fourth wave of COVID infections in the very near future, and the record high cases will begin to decline. Here's Jasmine Brown.
The acting chief medical officer gave a full breakdown of the country's COVID-19 status during a Ministry of Health and Wellness town hall meeting on Tuesday night. He says based on the data compiled over the last 2 weeks, it appears the increase in COVID cases is slowing down.
We are seeing a lesser increase than in the previous 2 weeks, where there were orders of magnitude in the increased numbers. It is my personal hope that we are cresting this wave. Personal hope, but time will tell.
The recent explosion in cases began in mid-December, with the holiday season already in full swing. Since then, the numbers have continued to mount. In the last week of updates alone, 3,208 cases have been recorded in the country, the highest weekly number since the start of the pandemic. And hospitalizations have also increased.
Hospitalizations have shown a steady but marked increase in the past several days. The numbers have stabilized at around 120 for the past few days. But it is important to note that these numbers reflect a significant proportion of individuals that are admitted for other conditions but would have tested positive for COVID-19. The ministry is working to ensure that we are able to reflect this experience in a more succinct way to provide a measure of reassurance to the public about the actual illness spectrum of admitted cases.
While hospitalizations are climbing, Swan says the good news is those needing to be placed in ICU remains low. Still, the overall numbers are a cause for concern for the Davis administration. Outside Cabinet on Tuesday, Health and Wellness Minister Dr. Michael Darville said they are concerned about the numbers. He also revealed the Ministry of Health is considering whether to impose additional restrictions as the Bahamas struggles with an exponential increase in COVID-19 cases. When it comes to the current measures in place, Dr. Swan says the mitigation measures that include revised travel and quarantine measures, hiring more doctors and nurses, and a ramped-up vaccination campaign are all in full swing. But he says ultimately getting past this latest hurdle in the pandemic will depend on residents adhering to the protocols.
Let's continue to work together to keep ourselves, our families, our workers, and our neighbors safe.
Reporting for our news, I'm Jasmine Brown.
Attorney General Ryan Pinder pledging government's commitment to the full enactment of the Freedom of Information Act. Pinder said government is currently in the process of relocating the Freedom of Information Unit to a more suitable location, which would help with expansion. He added an assistant information commissioner was appointed just this week.
A consultant has been engaged to prepare a strategic plan for implementation. Just this week, Mrs. Sally Ann Pratt transferred from the Register General Department to take up the position of Assistant Information Commissioner and will assume the day-to-day responsibility of the rollout of the Freedom of Information obligations throughout the pilot government agencies. My government pledges its support for the full implementation of the Freedom of Information Act.
Still ahead, a local restaurant supports government's decision to take lockdowns off the table. And DeAndre Ayton and the Suns bring the heat. Stay tuned.
Welcome to our news and thanks for joining us. Topping news tonight.
COVID-19 remains a serious threat.
Coronavirus COVID-19 has disrupted our economy, tourism industry, educational system, and put our healthcare facilities and professionals on high alert. Are you prepared? Do you have all the facts? Stay tuned to this network for the very latest news and information on this global pandemic.
This is Our News. Welcome back. A top official from the Pan American Health Organization is backing a CDC recommendation that warns against cruise ship travel amid a global surge in COVID-19 cases. In the past, Powell has recommended that countries like the Bahamas proceed with caution when it comes to cruising. However, the Director of Health Emergencies, Dr. Cira Ugarte, had a more direct recommendation today.
In the context of intense transmission due to the Omicron variant, as we have highlighted several times, it seems just logic, judicious, that suspending or at least limiting the cruise ship traffic as an outbreak on board might end up exceedingly high and probably will go beyond the capacity of the local health services. It is a very cautious approach.
The CDC advised the public against going on cruises regardless of their vaccination status following a surge in COVID cases on board ships. Dr. Ugarte was also asked about samples the Bahamas sent for testing to confirm the Omicron variant's presence in the country.
The samples have been sent for genomic sequencing, and the official response is on its way to the country. But according with the epidemiologic situation, but also that has been highlighted also by the Minister of Health of the Bahamas and PAHO, it is highly probable that the samples will turn out positive to Omicron.
Following months of closures and curfews, which were bad for business, a local restaurant manager is applauding the government's decision to take lockdowns off the table. Despite a spike in COVID-19 cases, Cafe Johnny Canoe manager Theo Picrameno says business has been steady, something they're very grateful for.
We have a greater mix of local than visitors, but visitors are starting to gain some ground now, so we're looking forward to that, but our locals keep us going, and we're very happy about that.
The restaurant manager applauded the government for allowing businesses to continue to operate despite a fourth wave of infections. He described what business was like during the state of emergency.
The lockdowns fluctuated from them deciding when they wanted to lock down. Some hours were extended, some hours were restricted, and they affected our business. And thank God for government change. And I'm not a political guy, but just common sense to tell you that the PLP are doing a very good job thus far.
DeAndre Ayton and the Suns stay hot in Toronto as Sammy Hunter and Ole Miss fall to Texas A&M. Marcellus Hall has more in sports.
All right, thanks a lot. Welcome to Our Sports, everybody. I'm Marcellus Hall. DeAndre Ayton and the Phoenix Suns have been one of the top surprises in the NBA this entire year. Not only have they held along the top, but now they lead the Western Conference. Back in action last night, looking to continue that trend.
Back to work last night for DeAndre Ayton and the Phoenix Suns. Suns looking to take over sole possession of the Western Conference lead. Guess what? They would get it done, despite having no fans in the stands. Of course, Toronto not allowing any fan attendance. Didn't matter. Phoenix gets the win here, 99-95. Wondering about our guy, DeAndre. Well, he played 30 minutes in the contest, finished up with 16 points, 9 rebounds, He also had a blocked shot. He shot 5 of 7 from the floor, which is always pretty good, 71%. Phoenix, as we said, getting the win, most importantly for them, as they now hold on to first place in the Western Conference at 31-9. Wondering when their next game comes your way? Well, that's going to be on Friday. Take on the Indiana Pacers on the road. They'll travel to Indiana for this one. We'll see whether or not they can continue to play the type of ball game that they've been doing all season long. On to some college basketball. We're one of our college basketball players in action last night, Sammy Hunter, playing for Ole Miss. As the Ole Miss men's basketball team going into the action on the floor last night. And Sammy has been playing limited minutes for this team, hoping to have an impact in this one. It did not happen quite the way he had anticipated. They fall short, as once again, Ole Miss still struggling to find their way through this regular season. College basketball's had a lot of stuff going on in terms of games being postponed due to COVID situations. They played Texas A&M, came up short 67-51. Sammy just a couple of minutes on the floor in this one for Ole Miss. He played 6 minutes, finished up with 2 rebounds, did not score in the game, actually. So that's a tough break for him, but he is still hoping that Ole Miss and himself will get on track.
And that's their look at sports here on this Wednesday. I'm Marcellus Hall. Back to you.
Still ahead, Greg is back in studio with a look at weather. Stay with us.
Welcome to our news and thanks for joining us. Topping news tonight.
COVID-19 remains a serious threat.
Coronavirus COVID-19 has disrupted our economy, tourism industry, educational system, and put our healthcare facilities and professionals on high alert. Are you prepared? Do you have all the facts? Stay tuned to this network for the very latest news and information on this global pandemic.
Welcome back to Our News. Windy and rainy conditions heading into the weekend. Greg is back with our extended weather forecast.
Thanks again, Kyle, and welcome back, everybody, for our second look at weather. Front boundary hanging across the central Bahamas, coupled with an upper level jet, generating a few strong thunderstorms yesterday. We saw some hail across the Cat Island as well as portions of South Eleuthera. We expect that system to continue to side towards the south and eventually dissipate. By tomorrow, we expect a low-pressure system to develop just to the east of the Bahamas and east of Florida. That will in turn bring another boundary through our area for tomorrow. So we're looking at some cooler temperatures as winds will be out of the northwest, bringing in those nice cool temperatures off the United States of America. So we're looking at some cooler conditions for the week, or the balance of the week actually, and into the weekend. And of course, another frontal boundary expected to approach us by the beginning of next week. We have an advisory posted for you guys tonight as if you plan on doing any boating, but a caution flag will be posted tomorrow. Winds initially will be out of this east to southeast, but they will swing quickly towards the southwest to west tomorrow, 10 to 15 knots. Sea is still rough out there, 2 to 4 feet near shore, but up to 6 feet in some swells. And of course, your low tide will be at 10:01 tonight. Here's a look now at your national forecast. A look now at your extended forecast through Wednesday. Nice conditions expected tomorrow, but we do expect some cooler temperatures into the weekend. Back to you, Kyle.
Well, thank you for joining us for Our News tonight. On behalf of the entire team, I'm Kyle Walkeen. Have a good evening, Bahamas.